Amanda Lutvey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just As Planned TV and podcast. My name is Amanda Lutvey. I'm from Marry Me Amanda. I know you all know me by now, but I'm back with another amazing guest. I'm so excited about this. I've been fangirling Dee for a little while, and I'll explain how and why. Oh my God, I sound like a stalker. But let me introduce you to Dee Wild, who is from Custom Celebrations by Dee. So she is a marriage celebrant. She is also the local leader for Victoria for the Celebrant Society, and we'll talk about what that is in a minute. But look, Dee is a storyteller, a maker of dresses, love your fashion, and a lover of prosecco. So you know, we've got something else in common. But she's also, as I said, the local leader of the Celebrant Society, and we want to know what that is and how that all works. So, Dee, welcome to the show to start with.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So good.
This is a good way to spend the morning.
It so is. I was just saying, you know, the thing, we all we want to do, wedding people, is talk about weddings.
Weddings.
And I don't know. Our partners get a little bit over it. The family are done with hearing about weddings. So, you know, we have to get together occasionally and talk weddings because no one else wants to do it.
No one else wants to hear about them. You're absolutely correct. Yep.
But look, as I mentioned in the intro, you wear quite a few wedding business hats. So talk to us about your business and the Celebrant Society and everything that you've got on your plate.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited. So my name is Dee. My pronouns are she, her. I am a celebrant coming up to 6 years with Melbourne Marriage Celebrant. My business name is Custom Celebrations by Dee. And I am also, local leader for the Celebrant Society, which is a national and a few sprinklings of international group of celebrants. It's been around longer than Amanda and I. I think 8 to 9 years, I think they're coming out. Started out as Anna and Sarah creating a small group of celebrants that wanted to gather together to do their ongoing professional development, the compulsory ongoing studies that we have to do. And then it's over time built into this, I think, phenomenal group of like-minded celebrants who are there to support, boost, hype up, encourage each other, learn from each other, and then also be there for the I just need to vent about this in an utterly safe space. You and I have both talked about how, you know, you complete the Cert 4 course, and that tells you some things, and you go through the application form with the Attorney General's Department, which feels very official and scary. And then you have these 2 pieces of paper that says that you are legally allowed to marry people, but the actual mechanisms of becoming that celebrant and telling that story and holding that space, all of those things, it's nowhere. So there's this group of amazing people who are very generous in sharing their skills and the things that they've done wrong or differently, or it's just a very good support base that is online, but then we also get together in person and talk about things as well. So that's me. That's my main 2 hats, is celebrant as Custom Celebrations by Dee, and then local leader for Celebrant Society.
Yeah, fantastic. I just love it. Well, look, we're here today to talk about something that could be considered a little controversial. You know, we're going to go there, but we're going to talk about money. We are going to talk about specifically the cost of celebrants in Australia, because as we know, and there's been a lot of chat in the Celebrant Society and in our group around, you know, there's a misconception for some, not for all, but a misconception out there in the market that as celebrants that we just kind of rock up for half an hour, we get paid our fee, and that's all we do. So we want to clear that misconception up. We want to talk about the role of a celebrant, the importance of it. Where do we even start with this topic? I don't know. It's a big one. We've opened a can. I
know. We have opened a can. And I think there's a couple of things that I guess, like, I often have couples say to me, like, it's almost like, you know, renovating or buying a house is that you have to learn on the job. Like, no one really gives you, in planning a wedding or say renovating a house or buying a house, no one gives you a template to go, this is how you do it. And so you kind of start off completely, you know, blind and not knowing where to start. You need somewhere to get married. Well, you need someone to marry. You need somewhere to get married. You need food and drink, and that it needs to look good. And then you need someone to make that bit happen. That's the ceremony. And I think for a long time, that part of it, which is our favorite part, was kind of I'll get through the ceremony and then get onto the party element, which is thankfully changing, and lots more couples and lots more couples, friends and families are placing that importance on the ceremony, because celebrants have changed the way they do things and are adding more importance into the story and making it completely personalized. But then there are also celebrants who can just deliver the legals and tell a part of the story that isn't completely personalized. So there's many celebrants out there. So I think
there's so many options.
There's so many options, and we are not, I guess, governed by price. There's no minimum, maximum price for celebrants. It very much depends on where you are, the type of couples you're booking, the type of ceremony you're doing. So it's a wide and vast pool of talented people doing it, and all in it for different reasons, which impacts the costing. So yeah, it's a big one. We've opened.
We sure have. We sure have. But look, if we just start with, I suppose, the hours, right? The hours that we put into one ceremony. Talk about a journey that you go on with your couples. Where does it start? How many touch points are there? What does that even look like? And I imagine it's different for every couple, like it is for me. But yeah. Yeah.
It is different for every couple, but at the same time, there is a bit of a process, and there is a bit of, I guess, a continuity with it. So a couple inquires, whether that be through my website, through my Instagram, or one of the directories I'm on. I do a very, very excited happy dance when I see that. Are you available for our date? Hopefully I am available, because it's really crushing when you get a couple inquire at a venue you really want to work with, and they sound amazing, and then you look at the calendar and you're like, nah, I'm already marrying an amazing couple on that day. So then it comes back to, then I rely on the Celebrant Society to suggest other like-minded couples, and that goes. Now, if you think about it, that's already, an hour. That's just kind of that. But so yeah, a couple inquires, hopefully I'm available. We set up a meeting. Post-COVID Melbourne, I really like getting out to meet my couples in person. So then organizing that. So it's a coffee at my favorite coffee shop close to home, or it's a beer in my favorite beer garden. If we can't make those work, then we have an initial Zoom chat. So then that's that time where it's, tell me about your wedding, tell me about your love story, tell me about all the plans, where are you at with planning, what questions do you have? And it's a vibe check. It's like it's a first date.
It is, and often you turn for those, and it is like a blind date, because you have no idea what these people look like. You're just looking for a couple, looking for someone else. It's like,
yes,
are you there?
Yes. And often they'll recognize us because they've been on our website or our Instagram, so they know who we are. I've got if it's Sarah and Amanda, I've got a rough idea of who I'm looking for, but you don't. So many a time I've enthusiastically jumped up at my cafe and greeted someone, and they're like, hi, no, you're not here to meet me, as you were.
Totally.
Yeah. So there's that initial chat. It's literally a vibe check. It's making sure that our values align, that the sort of things they're saying for their wedding are the sort of things that excite me about weddings, that we're on the same page, and that they feel comfortable with me, because we get deep real quick. Like we start to ask intense questions. That first meet, we might be asking about, how's the family dynamics? Like, what are we walking into on the wedding day? We find out a lot of information about our couples. So it's just really important that you're comfortable with each other. Hopefully from then, you know, the admin side kicks in, you go home, you create the quote, you create the start of the paperwork. Hopefully the couple says, yes, that was amazing, ticks the box, books us in. And then depending on how long out, like sometimes we have couples book us, as you know, 12 to 18 months out. This year, I think we're finding couples are like, so we're going to get married in 3 months. And you're like, okay, we can do this, but we need to move now. Strap in.
And that's the other thing. I was just going to say, a lot of couples don't realise we kind of need some notice. You can't just get married next week. This isn't the United States.
Exactly. This is not Joey Tribbiani downloading a certificate from the internet. Like this, it can't happen. So there's a minimum 31 days paperwork has to be lodged by us. So you can possibly find a pub venue or that on a short notice, but if it's going to be legal, then it needs to be planned out. So within that time, sometimes I'll say to my couples, if it's a year away, I said, I'm going to leave you alone now. I even give you permission to stop thinking about wedding planning. Like you've got your photographer, venue, celebrant, florist, you've got the big bits locked in. Now you can just kind of relax and maybe not think about it for a little while. And then, a good 3-4 months out, we get together, fill out that legally binding paperwork, which is the notice of intention to marry, so that we can lodge that with BDM, which I tend to call a bit like the marriage license. Like we're more familiar with Hollywood serving us up marriage license. So that's how I kind of frame it for my couples, that it's that. So, but I also love that meeting because it's generally what I call the planning meeting. So we get the paperwork signed and I see their IDs, and then it's a sometimes 2-hour robust conversation about what their day and their ceremony looks like. So again, that's hopefully over coffee or beer, or it can be on Zoom. And that's when you really get into how are you entering into your ceremony space, who's standing there with you, if anyone. Have we got flower girls? Are we doing a confetti toss-up? Like that's when you find all the details so that you can build the ceremony. Send my couple a questionnaire, or I get to know all their inner thoughts and feelings about each other, their story, their quirks, all the detail that we go into. And then it's ceremony writing time. So then it's sitting with those questionnaires. I'm a printer and a doodler, so I like to print it out and draw circles and exclamation marks and love hearts around bits and highlighting bits, and sitting down to write the ceremony. What's next? Then I like to send my couples a draft, whether it's a full draft with the story included or whether it's more the nuts and bolts of the ceremony so they know what's happening. Then it's helping them write their vows. And at this point, it's kind of as many text messages, emails, calls as we need. Do you know what I mean? Because it could be, since our meeting, we've decided we've added 2 extra flower girls, or turns out both mum and dad are going to walk me down the aisle, or just all those little things. Or we've chatted to our photographer and realized that actually the best light is going to be at this time. So we're moving the ceremony 45 minutes. And all of these things we can absolutely work with. Yeah. It's just those final changes.
Tweaks.
That we incorporate. Yeah, the tweaks that we incorporate in. And then the week of the ceremony, I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about my couples that week of their ceremony. Like it's, last week was Beck and Lisa week. And that's when the ceremony is finalized. You're making sure that if they're doing personal vows, both of the couples have sent the personal vows to me. I then print it to go into my ceremony book. The ceremony gets printed. The paperwork of BDM is updated and printed. The pretty certificate is printed, and my speaker is on charge, my mics are on charge, my dress is made and ironed. Like, it's
behind the scenes,
yeah, the car's full of petrol, or I've worked out how I'm getting there. Like, it's that's sort of the process.
Yes.
Wedding day, lots of energy, high fun, leave with a hug and, hopefully a glass of prosecco before you go. I come home and register it either that night or the next morning.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much, apart from sort of then looking forward to seeing the photos from the day. In a sense, our job ends when we go home and register the wedding. But that's a process. So it's not 20 minutes, and it is not one day a week. To quote some things that get thrown at us.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's so many things that need to be ticked, and what do they say? I's to dot, T's to cross, like, to make sure that someone is legally married. Like, and I think couples often, and you don't know what you don't know. If you've never been married before, you can completely underestimate the ceremony part of the wedding.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And it's also it's those things of often couples don't actually like being the center of attention, and so it's holding space. And that's why we do ask lots of questions about family dynamics and who's coming to the wedding, because often, especially, lots of my couples enter in together. So when I start the housekeeping ceremony, it's just me standing up there. So you kind of need to have a read on who's there and how they're all getting along and all of those sorts of little things, because you're holding space for that ceremony. And people have arrived for the wedding. There's a lot of emotion on a wedding day, and we kind of hold that space, which is an intangible thing, but it needs to be held just right for each couple. So
it does.
Yeah.
And then I think there's also, like, let's think about the hidden costs. Like, obviously, to be qualified to be a marriage celebrant in Australia, there's a course that we all need to do, the Cert 4 that you mentioned before. And then there's the cost of all the stuff we need, right?
Yes.
Like, you can't just, hey, I'm a celebrant and let's go. Like, there's paperwork to order from CanPrint, which can only come from one printer in Australia, and it's all got, everyone's got a different number on it. And I was panicking. What do I do with this stuff? When I first got them, like, tell us about that from a celebrant's point of view. All of the other stuff people don't see.
Yeah, and I think we're also seeing a rise, and I completely get it, because it's taking that personalization even further, of having a friend or a family member do the ceremony for the couple, which I get, because they know them, or perhaps they're not having a wedding party but want their best friend or sister to tell the story. And you often get the inquiry going, we were going to get our friend to become a celebrant to do our wedding, and then we looked into it. So now can they co-captain with you? Because it's a Cert 4 certificate that you obviously have to pay for, and that varies from anywhere to online or in person, and then how much detail you're getting. So that's an absolute cost and commitment. Then there's the Attorney General's application form that certifies that the Attorney General is confident that you as a celebrant have done your training, and we have to get police checks, we have to get references, we have to give them a copy of a ceremony we've written, so that they're confident that they're setting out, because we're the ones that are legally responsible for ensuring that you're married. So they need to make sure that we know which IDs are appropriate, recording divorce certificates, ensuring that couples are actually eligible to be married. So there's that big component. Yes. And then you get those two pieces of paper and you go, right, I want to marry people now.
What do I do now?
Yes. So then it goes down the setting up a website, which even if you did, a an almost free site, but you still paid for the name and did it yourself, there's still costs in that.
100%.
Then it's like, oh, great. I think I've got a couple booked, but how is everyone going to hear me? So then you have to invest in a speaker, which, you know, my beloved speaker that has a few scratches and bruises on it now, it has absolutely paid for itself. But, oh, my Lord, that first, when you hand over the money for that speaker and all you've done is spend money to get to that first wedding, it's, it feels a little bit gut-wrenching.
Totally.
Plus, you know, we always recommend joining an association like the Celebrant Society, or there are some others, just to have that support and backup.
And then there's also the insurance part that goes with the society. Yeah.
Yep. So Celebrant Society also covers your public liability insurance, which we're finding post-COVID that a lot of venues are asking for that certificate of insurance, you know, pretty early on. Then there's advertising, because you've got to get your name out there somewhere. So that's either, you know, Google, Facebook, Instagram ads, or joining a directory or paying for advertising. Yeah. Then there's, you know, there's, like you said, there's the paperwork. So the actual certificate that we give the couple on the day, we have to order from Canberra, from the one place that prints. We have to get that in. So there's a cost in that. We're downloading forms from the internet. We've got there's an operating system to make sure that you're keeping track of your couples. There's the coffees and the beers when you are meeting with a couple. You know, there are getting to that first wedding can be, it's a distinct outlay of funds, and taking a risk on yourself as well, of going, yep, I can do this. I'm going to back myself.
100%.
And it's going to take some time for that money to come back before you, like, it would take, I don't even want to, it depends on where you are, but it would take several, if not many, weddings to break even, if that makes sense. Yeah. The setup costs totally are significant. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the ongoing cost, and I kind of love having this excuse up my sleeve, but we need to look good at the wedding. So, you know, having to buy a new dress every few weeks is kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Yes. Especially in season. Yes. You know, I can't wear that one. I wore that to so-and-so's wedding, so I've got to wear, you know.
Exactly. And actually, they got referred to me from friends that might be there, so I can't wear the same dress. Or I'm working with Loz photographer again, so I can't wear the same outfit I wore last time. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's feeding my fabric and earring obsession quite well.
Yeah. 100%. I've actually got a whole part of my wardrobe that's just the Celebrant stuff. But look, you mentioned a great thing before. When you're first meeting a couple, it's that vibe check thing. What advice would you give to couples listening, watching? How do you find the Celebrant for you? I mean, whether you've got this bigger budget or this bigger budget, where do you even start? What's your advice?
So my first one would just be to go to the Celebrant Society directory, where you will find over 400 celebrants listed, that you can just pick one in your area and go with that. But so there is that. I think it's your other vendors are brilliant recommendations, particularly if we're thinking budget lines. So most couples start with their venue, because their venue will dictate the size of the wedding, the budget. Like, that's the biggest expense. So most couples start with the venue. So whether it's an official list that the venue have of preferred suppliers, or just asking your venue on your tour, once you've paid your deposit, like, who do you recommend for celebrant and photographer? Because they will generally, you know, they're going to be, because they've worked with them before and have seen their ceremonies. And more importantly, I think, for those sort of recommendations and interactions, they've seen the celebrant arrive kind of in some of those off camera moments, if you know what I mean. And they've been in contact with the celebrant beforehand. So I think your venue and your photographer are great places to go for your celebrant request or recommendation, especially because it's going to be, I guess, a similar budget. If for some reason the venue doesn't have a recommended supplier list, look at who on their Instagram or their feed who's often at the venue, because that also can indicate that they're the right type of that vibe and price point, as well as is right for you. Instagram and a hashtag, like, it's one of those hidden costs in terms of time that we all pour ourselves into it and then get done with it and don't want to do it, but it can help. So looking at hashtag Melbourne Celebrant or hashtag Brisbane Celebrant, yes, we'll bring up a lot, but if there's someone there that you're scrolling that you're like, oh, I like the look of Amanda, or what nutbag earrings is that Custom Celebrations by Dee wearing now, if there's someone that, if there's something that you relate to as you're scrolling through, then that's a good indicator as well. And family and friends, whether it's the friend, sometimes it's the friend that went to a wedding and went, oh my God, the wedding was amazing, but the ceremony didn't feel like them. So then that's not who to ask for. But if they come home and you're asking people about weddings and they go, yeah, I really loved the celebrant, or I love the way they did that, or I hadn't seen that done in a wedding before. Family and friends are good ones. Yeah. And as a celebrant, make sure all your family and friends know that you're a celebrant. So that when someone at work says, oh, we just got engaged, we're like, great. Here's Amanda's details.
100%. And I think that remains my biggest source of it's either venues or word of mouth. It's people who've seen you in action and know that you're going to vibe with the couple. And that's what it's all about. I always say to my couples, we have to meet to see if I'm right for you. I may not be your perfect celebrant match, and that's okay.
And that's okay. Because if I'm not, I can, pretty much guarantee that I can find someone. So I can find definitely like-minded celebrants that are very much on my same vibe. Or I can probably find someone who, I love and respect, but we have very different approaches. And so therefore I can say, actually, I would recommend that you have a chat with, another celebrant. And I also think as a both actually, couple and celebrant, it's like looking at where you're getting your wedding inspiration. So if you're reading Hello May magazine, or for a lot of my couples, it's Dancing with Her. And a lot of these have directories as well. So it's finding the weddings of celebrants that we want to work at, and then working with those publications and directories. And for couples, it's what are the weddings that are, almost stopping you in your tracks if you're scrolling, and then looking at where they are and who's involved. And then picking those from, And
the thing, I think, a lot of people talk about the costs of weddings, and the reality is it's one day. And we as your vendors, every vendor I know who works in weddings is so committed to making sure that we deliver. We get one shot at it, right? And that's the thing. And that's what you're paying for. You are paying for us. It's a performance. Really.
It is. It's a performance, and it's a performance that has several different layers. So it's a performance of kind of, I always like to get there before the guests. I like to get there. I like to have my set up. I like to have my own nervous pacing. Me
too. I do that.
Yeah. Check in with the venue, and then so that by the time the guests arrive, I'm ready. Do you know what I mean? So then it's introducing guests. There's something welcoming guests. There's something about weddings that the floor is lava and nobody ever wants to take the seats or come in nice and close. So it's about, I call it my sweeping hands, where I'm like, come on, everybody, come on in nice and close. It's checking in with the couple beforehand, which is a really different energy to then delivering the ceremony, because there are always nerves, depending on what else is going on, or if we're changing the plan because of wedding, that's a really different energy. That's almost like our calm, nurturing energy before we go into high energy delivering ceremony. So, and it's making sure that everything flows in that ceremony so that we're thinking almost one step ahead whilst delivering a engaging ceremony.
Totally.
We're also making sure that if we're distributing the petals in the signing, that you're making sure that they are close by and that you've allocated, like, or there's a flower girl there that's just tipped over 17 cones of petals, but that's okay because we'll be able to we'll get the wedding party who aren't in the signing to scoop those up and distribute. So there's all of these, it's checking in almost with just eye nods with the photographer to make sure that the couple are perfectly centered under the arbor or in the ceremony space before you start. It's reading your couple to make sure that they're ready to go. Do you know what I mean? It's not, and I think when I started, I was too like, okay, music stopped, now let's start. Now, it takes that experience to go, all the guests have been here for 45 minutes, but the couple is seeing all of that planning come together for the first time. So wait it out. Like, pauses are fine.
Take a moment. Take
a moment. But all of that takes, and, you know, and this is also on top of, we might not be feeling 100%. I mean, I think post-COVID, if a celebrant's not feeling 100%, we call it and we reach out to Celebrant Society or our group of people and say, I shouldn't be at this wedding today. But it's also, we might have, I don't know, the traffic might have been bad. I don't have kids, but the kids might have been running ragged. You might have, even though it's someone's love day, have had terse words with your partner that morning, possibly because you were nervous about the wedding and they, of no fault of their own. I'm just projecting here, of course.
Hilarious. I love it.
But it's all these things that no one else needs to know about on the day because you 100%. Are there to perform a ceremony. So that energy levels and that, you know, your volume changes. So that's it. That's a part of it which isn't, you can't put a price on it, but at the same time, as celebrants and business owners, we have to put a price on it. And I think that's also where it gets tricky because, let's face it, celebrancy world is largely women, and we are notoriously bad at valuing ourselves and charging what we're worth. Going real controversial now.
It's so true, though. It is. It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if you think about the variation in pricing for celebrants, just within the areas that we both work in, it is huge. And you know, I always look back and say, well, you know, the registry office, you can go and get married there in Brisbane, and I think it's about $500 or $600. So of course, you know, if you want something really short and sweet, the registry office is an absolutely beautiful option. However, if you do want a celebrant, you want your story and your personal vows and all of everything that comes with that. I always say also, we're the facilitator of the ceremony. We are going to make sure from woe to go, everything happens on time as planned, or we've got the behavioural flexibility to rescue it and make sure that it's all okay anyway. You know?
Exactly. And we have that personality that can, you know, walk in and chat to the venue manager. And then recently we had to move a wedding because of rain. Hello, Melbourne. But then the rain had cleared just enough that the brilliant photographer and venue team and I had figured that we could still give them that pedal toss moment if we moved all the guests outside. So we chatted about that beforehand, and it was literally a thumbs up and a nod whilst I was doing the ceremony, the signing, that we then all work together. And those shots of them walking out with the pedals are perfect. But it's those changes and those intricacies. The other thing I think with the registry office is that you go to them, like you take the tram in or drive into the city, you go to them and have your standard ceremony and which, you know, you can make lovely. You can still get dressed up and go out for a fancy lunch afterwards. It doesn't have to be perfunctory. It can still be really lovely. But we can also do that ceremony at your favorite pub, or at your table over coffees and croissants and pajamas. Like, there are so many other... I
want one of those. Can I do a legals only over coffee?
Same.
And like, how cool is that?
I know, right? Legals only over cocktails might be one of my favorite. You know, it's just, but because it's stripped down to its bare bones, they're still really impactful and meaningful and still emotional. You can still exchange rings and do personal vows. It just depends on what you want. You can have a shorter ceremony that doesn't maybe tell all the story, but kind of it's still, you've still got 20, 40 guests that have made an effort to get dressed up. So you want to give them that gravitas of the moment. So there's so many different ways and where we can work that also definitely comes into it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, look, Dee, I don't know about you, but I've set my sights on marrying. I saw one of our members in the Celebrant Society actually married a couple in a balloon last year. That is it's on my Celebrant bucket list. So if anyone's getting married in a balloon, please yell out in Queensland, willing to travel, happy to do that. But I think, as you just said, I think the summary is, how long is a piece of string in terms of subject matter? Like, really, there are so many, there's so much that goes into your celebrant and every other vendor for that matter. The back end, the business running, the everything else. So I think it's hopefully we've gone some way to kind of educating whoever is listening as to the background, the behind the scenes stuff. So But
and
look,
I also think,
sorry, keep going.
I was just going to say, you know, there is a celebrant for everyone, the celebrant for every occasion. And it's, I also think sometimes you book your celebrant right after you've probably booked your photographer and your venue, which are your next biggest expensive. Right? And so sometimes we almost feel like we need to come in a little bit later, because then you've added in all the other things in your wedding. When you first start, I think some celebrants, it might seem like a lot of money, but we're with you for the long haul. So it's that's what you're getting.
And a wedding without a celebrant is really just a big party. I mean, come on. But look, Dee, before we go, how do couples find you? Where do they find you? I know you said Instagram and Facebook. Where are you?
Although it's been recently pointed out to me that I have abjectly neglected my Facebook page. I think I just do the auto share from Instagram. So I am always on Instagram at Custom Celebrations by Dee. I'm also hanging out on the Celebrant Society Instagram, my website, and I'm in a couple of directories as well. So that's generally where couples find me. Don't phone me because I'm really bad. The week of your wedding, I will answer phone calls, but before then, I'm atrocious at answering phone. Really good on a text message, great on an Instagram message, good on the emails.
I like that you've ranked that. That's hilarious.
Oh, completely.
You know the thing, I think text is gold, isn't it? Like, it's just... Thank God. What did we do? I don't even know what we did for
I have no idea.
So,
I don't know.
We had to pick up the bloody phone. Like,
no.
Anyway. But look, thank you so much. This has been a really insightful chat. And every time I see your socials, I get a positive, like a bit of your positive energy. So I hope that everyone listening and watching has got a bit of that through as well. I'm sure they will. But thank you again. And if you have any questions for Dee or I, please feel free to comment or to send us both a message, because we'd love to hear what you think of this, especially our chat. And we'll see you again soon, Dee. So thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And everyone else, I'll see you on another episode of Just As Planned very, very soon. Please keep tuning in and sharing our stuff. We're trying to grow our audience, and we'd love to see more of you benefiting from us letting you know how to plan your wedding in the best way with the best vendors in the market.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Just As Planned Weddings podcast. Please like and subscribe to let us know that you want more videos just like this one. And of course, please follow us on our socials at Just As Planned Wedding on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube for more expert insights to help your wedding go just as planned.